Breaking right now, the suspect accused of stabbing a 16-year-old student at Baytown Sterling High School now being held on a $3 million bond for murder. 18-year-old Andrew Meismer appeared before a judge for the first time today. You can see that video right on the right side of your screen there.
In every home, behind every closed door, there's a story waiting to be uncovered. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where we dive deep into the hidden truths of domestic crime and the relationships that turn deadly. If you're drawn to real stories, powerful insights, and the shadows most people avoid, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and step into the whispers they never wanted you to hear. $21. That's what it cost for a 16-year-old boy to lose his life inside his own high school. Not $21,000. Not even $210. $21. Over a vape pen. Girl, make it make sense. Andrew Meismer walked into Baytown Sterling High School one morning, probably thinking about his girlfriend, probably cracking jokes like he always did. He didn't walk out. And the reason why? I need you to sit down for this one, because when I tell you how senseless this was, Andrew Meismer was 16 years old, a student at Sterling High School in Baytown, Texas. And look, I'm going to be real with you. This wasn't just some kid walking through the halls minding his business. Andrew was that person. You know the type. The one who goes out of their way to make sure everybody around them is smiling. His girlfriend, Iquel Favrier, she said it best when she told reporters.
He had deep connections with everyone.
4 months. That's how long Andrew and Iquel had been together. Young love, right? The kind where you're still learning each other's favorite foods, still figuring out what makes each other laugh. She called him a goofball, an all-around clown. And I mean that literally, because Andrew would show up to school in a full clown costume sometimes. Not because he was trying to be disruptive or get attention for himself. He did it to spread joy, to make people smile, to remind his classmates that even when school felt heavy, even when life felt hard, there was still room for laughter. Think about that for a second. A 16-year-old boy who cared so much about other people's happiness that he'd put on makeup and a costume just to brighten their day. That's who Andrew was. That's the kind of energy he brought into every room. His friends knew it. His teachers knew it. And Iquel, she knew it better than anybody. Now, Sterling High School sits in Baytown, and like a lot of schools these days, it had its issues. Students had been talking. Parents had been talking. There were concerns about safety, about whether the administration was really listening when kids said they didn't feel protected. We're going to get into that in a minute, but I need you to understand something first. This wasn't some school in chaos. This wasn't a place where violence was happening every single day. But the warning signs, they were there, and people were seeing them. Let me tell you something. When students start saying they don't feel safe, when they're raising their hands in meetings and speaking up to administrators and nothing changes, that's a problem. That's not just a problem. That's a failure. Because these kids, they're not asking for the moon. They're asking to walk through the hallways without worrying if today's going to be the day something goes wrong. At Sterling High, students had been vocal. They'd been expressing concerns about safety for a while. Not just whispering about it in the cafeteria or complaining to their friends. They were bringing it to the people who were supposed to do something about it. And from what students were saying after Andrew's death, those concerns fell on deaf ears. The system that was supposed to protect them, the reporting process that was supposed to make sure their voices were heard, it wasn't working. Now, I don't know if anybody could have predicted exactly what was about to happen. I don't know if there were specific threats made or if Andrew Meismer had been on anyone's radar. But what I do know is this. When kids are telling you they're scared, when they're saying the school doesn't feel safe, You don't get to ignore that and then act surprised when something terrible happens. Anyways, let's talk about December 2024. The school year is in full swing. Andrew's going to class, spending time with Iquel, doing his thing, making people laugh, being that light that everybody needed. And somewhere in that same building, there's an 18-year-old named Andre Matthews. 18, which means he's either a senior or he's still in high school for reasons we don't fully know yet. What we do know is that Andre and Andrew were about to cross paths in the worst way possible. Here's where it gets absolutely ridiculous. A vape pen. A $21 vape pen. That's what this whole thing was about. Now, I don't know if it was Andrew's vape pen, if it was Andre's, if somebody took it from somebody else, or if there was some kind of transaction that went wrong. What I know is that prosecutors would later stand in front of a judge and say that the argument that led to Andrew's death started over a $21 vape pen. $21, y'all. I need you to really sit with that. Because in 2024, $21 is what? A couple of fast food meals? A few gallons of gas? A cheap t-shirt? That's it. That's what we're talking about. And for that, a 16-year-old boy who dressed up like a clown to make people happy was about to lose his life. The fight started inside the school, not outside in the parking lot, not off campus somewhere, inside Sterling High School, during school hours, where there should have been teachers, administrators, security, something, somebody, to step in before it escalated. But it did escalate. And it escalated fast. Girl, I don't even know how you get from arguing about a vape pen to pulling out a knife. Like, what is happening in your mind where you think that's the next logical step? You're that angry over $21 that you're willing to commit murder. Make it make sense, because it doesn't. It never will. So here's what happened. Andre Matthews and Andrew Meismer got into it, right there in the school. The argument turned into a fight, and at some point during that fight, Andre pulled out a knife and stabbed Andrew. Now, I wish I could tell you exactly how it went down, moment by moment. I wish I had the details of who threw the first punch, who said what, how long the fight lasted before the knife came out. But what we know for sure is that a weapon was involved, and that weapon was used on a 16-year-old boy who didn't deserve any of this. Think about what's happening around them while this is going down. There are other students in that building, teachers, staff, people walking to class, grabbing books from their lockers, just trying to get through another school day. And in the middle of all that, a teenager is being stabbed. The chaos that must have erupted when people realized what was happening. The screaming, the panic, students running, trying to get away, trying to get help, trying to process what they just saw. Because let's be clear about something. Most of these kids have never seen violence like that up close. They've seen it in movies, sure. Maybe they've heard about it happening in other places. But watching someone you go to school with, someone you might have sat next to in class or passed in the hallway, watching them get stabbed, that's trauma. That's the kind of thing that stays with you. Andrew was 16 years old. He should have been worried about his next test, about what he and Iquel were going to do that weekend, about whether he'd saved up enough money for whatever 16-year-olds are saving up for these days. Instead, he's bleeding, hurt, fighting for his life over something so meaningless it makes your head hurt just thinking about it. And Andre Matthews? He's 18, an adult in the eyes of the law, old enough to vote, old enough to join the military, old enough to be held fully accountable for his choices. And the choice he made that day was to take a knife and use it on another human being, over a vape pen. The stabbing happened inside Sterling High School, inside the place where Andrew was supposed to be safe, inside the place where his parents sent him that morning, probably telling him to have a good day, probably not even considering for a second that he wouldn't come home. Because why would they? You don't send your kid to school thinking it might be the last time you see them alive. Emergency services were called. I can only imagine what that scene looked like when they arrived. The blood. The students crying, some of them probably in shock. Teachers trying to keep everyone calm while also dealing with their own fear and confusion. And Andrew, this boy who spent his time making other people smile, lying there because of someone else's anger over $21. He didn't make it. Andrew Meismer died from his injuries. A 16-year-old life, snuffed out before it really even got started. No prom, no graduation, no getting to see what he would have become, who he would have grown into. No more mornings with Iquel. No more clown costumes. No more making his friends laugh. Just gone. Investigation after Andrew's death. Law enforcement moved fast. Andre Matthews was identified as the suspect. This wasn't some mystery where detectives had to piece together who did what. The stabbing happened at school, in front of witnesses. There was no question about who was responsible. Andre was arrested and initially held in Baytown. The case was serious enough, the charges were severe enough, that he was eventually transferred to Harris County. And let me tell you, when they moved him, the media was there. Cameras caught him arriving under police escort, being brought in to face what he'd done. The charge? Murder. Not manslaughter. Not aggravated assault. Murder. Because that's what it was. Andre Matthews was formally charged with the murder of Andrew Meismer. And when you're 18 years old facing a murder charge in Texas, you better believe that's about as serious as it gets. Now, the defense attorney, he's doing what defense attorneys do. He's talking about going through surveillance footage from the school. And look, that's his job. Everyone deserves legal representation. Everyone deserves their day in court. But let's not pretend like surveillance footage is going to change the basic facts of what happened. A boy is dead. Another boy is accused of killing him over a vape pen. The case moved through the system, and Andre Matthews found himself standing in front of a judge. This was his first court appearance, and I'm sure it was a whole different reality for him. You can talk tough, you can act like you're built for whatever, but when you're standing in a courtroom and a judge is looking at you, when you're hearing words like murder charge attached to your name, that's when it hits different. The prosecutors laid it out plain. They told the judge that the stabbing happened during a fight inside Sterling High School. They said the argument that started it all was over a $21 vape pen. Just said it right there in open court. $21. The judge heard that, along with everything else, and had to make a decision about bond. Here's what the judge said.
I do find probable cause. Your bond is set at $3 million, and we will see you next year for the 11D hearing.
$3 million. Let that sink in for a minute. That's not a bond you're making unless you've got serious resources. That's not a bond that says the court thinks you're going to show up for trial out of the goodness of your heart. That's a bond that says you're staying right where you are until this case is resolved. And Andre Matthews? He's been in custody ever since. The next court date got set for January 7th. That's when they'll talk about the bond again, when his lawyers can argue for it to be lowered, when the prosecution can argue for why it should stay exactly where it is. But for now, Andre sits in jail, and Andrew's family plans a funeral. Period. That's the reality. While one family is picking out a casket and writing an obituary for a 16-year-old, the other family is visiting their son in lockup and trying to figure out how they got here. And in the middle of it all, there's a school full of students who watched this happen and are trying to process the fact that one of their own is gone.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Ugochi Iloka. Right now, we are also learning brand new details as what to really led up to this fight that ultimately ended in the 16-year-old student's death there ended his life. Now we have team coverage for you this afternoon, but let's start first with Jalissa Garza, who is live inside the Harris County Courthouse with those brand new details. Jalissa, what can you tell us?
Hey, Ugochi, good afternoon. That's exactly right. The suspect in this case that we have all been watching very closely, 18-year-old Andre Matthews, did appear before a judge not long ago. Let me go ahead and break down for you what we learned inside of the courtroom. But first, go ahead and take a look at your screen. This is video we got this morning of Andre Matthews arriving here in Harris County under police escort after being transferred from Baytown. It was something we were waiting for all morning long. And according to court records, Matthews is formally charged with murder in the death of 16-year-old Andrew Meismer. Now, inside the courtroom, prosecutors allege the stabbing happened during a fight inside Sterling High School, saying the argument started over a $21 vape pen.
But I do find probable cause. Your bond is set at $3 million, and we will see you next year for the 11D hearing.
Now, Matthews does remain in custody at this moment. He will be back in court on January 7th, where his bond will be rediscussed. Now, we did also hear from the defense attorney who says he's going to be combing through surveillance video. Of course, we'll continue our coverage on this story, and we'll have more on our extended noon newscast coming up on KHOU 11+. For now, reporting in downtown Houston, Jalissa Garza, KHOU 11 News.
Over a vape pen. Unbelievable. Thank you, Jalissa. Our team coverage continues this afternoon with Devon Rahming live outside Baytown Sterling High School. What's going on there, Devon? They're protesting, where students are protesting against the school and district. Devon.
Hey, Ugochi, yeah, so the crowd behind me is made up of both students and parents that have been out here for several hours now making their voices heard. The crowd is a little smaller than it was when we got out here about 2 hours ago, now that school is out for the day. But you know, the folks who are out here right now, you know, they said that they're out here really showing support for both families involved in the tragic death of 16-year-old Andrew Meismer. Now, many of them have been chanting, "Long live Andrew, we need change." Also, justice for Andrew. Many of the students we spoke with today say they're angry and frustrated, claiming they've raised concerns about safety in the past, but feel those warnings were ignored by the school and the district. They're now calling for accountability, saying the system in place for students to report concerns haven't been taken seriously. And students say this protest is about demanding change and making sure they feel safe on campus. Now, moments ago, we actually got to speak with Iquel Favrier. She's a student here at Sterling High School, and she's also Andrew's girlfriend. Here's what she had to say about her high school sweetheart.
He had deep connections with everyone, and I'm trying not to only think of myself right now and also support everyone who loved him.
Now, in speaking with her, she shared these pictures with us capturing their young love of only just 4 months. And she described him as an all-around goofball and a clown. In fact, some of the students out here today were wearing clown makeup because they say Andrew used to wear a clown costume from time to time in school simply to keep smiles on everyone's faces and to spread joy and love with everyone he met. Now, back out here live, many here also say they're rallying around Andrew's family as well as the Matthews family and the victim's girlfriend, who you just heard from, standing together as the community continues to mourn. Of course, we're going to have much more from out here at Sterling High School coming up in our half hour of the streaming show on KHOU 11+, starting at 12:30. Guys, back to you.
Devon, so many passionate students out there. Thank you for that breakdown.
So Andre Matthews is in custody. $3 million bond. Court date set for January 7th. The legal system is doing what it does, moving at its own pace while everybody else is trying to make sense of what happened. His defense attorney is already talking strategy, surveillance footage, going through every frame, every angle, trying to build a case. And like I said before, that's what lawyers do. They look for anything that might help their client. Maybe the footage shows something that changes the context. Maybe it shows something that explains how things escalated so fast. But at the end of the day, There's no footage that's going to bring Andrew back. The prosecutors, they've got their case too. They've got witnesses, students who saw what happened. They've got the murder weapon, presumably. They've got a dead 16-year-old and an 18-year-old defendant who's not denying he was involved in the fight. The question isn't really whether Andre Matthews was there or whether he stabbed Andrew Meismer. The question is going to be about intent, about what led up to it, about whether this was premeditated or if it happened in the heat of the moment. But here's the thing about trials in cases like this. They take time, months, sometimes years. Jury selection, motions, evidence, testimony. It's a whole process. And while that process is happening, Andrew's family has to wait. They have to sit through hearing the details of how their son died over and over again. They have to look at photos they don't want to see. They have to listen to lawyers argue about technicalities while their boy is in the ground. The January 7th hearing, that's just the beginning. That's when they'll rediscuss the bond, figure out next steps, set more dates. The real trial, if it even goes to trial, that's down the road. And there's always the possibility of a plea deal. Maybe Andre's lawyers convince him to take a deal to avoid the risk of a harsher sentence at trial. Maybe the prosecution offers something to avoid the uncertainty of putting it in front of a jury. We don't know yet. What we do know is that Andre Matthews is facing a murder charge, and in Texas, that's not something to play with. The community is watching. Students are watching. Parents are watching. Everybody wants to see what happens next, whether there's going to be justice for Andrew, whether the system is going to work the way it's supposed to. After Andrew's death, something happened at Sterling High School that you don't see every day. The students organized. They protested. Not just a few kids standing outside with signs. We're talking students and parents, coming together, showing up for hours, making their voices heard. They were chanting, "Long live Andrew. We need change. Justice for Andrew." They weren't just mourning their friend. They were demanding accountability. They were saying what a lot of people were thinking. This didn't have to happen. Rest in peace, Andrew Meismer. Gone way too soon over something that should have never cost you your life.